Everybody, welcome back. This is XL 10 Minute Leaders Live. 10 minutes to learn something about leadership from different aspects of the world, from business, society, technology. Today, we are going to learn about being fearless. What is that as an important factor in leadership? How important that is, not just in yourself, but in other people. My name's Graham Brown, joined in the studio today all the way from California, Jacqueline Wales. Jacqueline, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here, Graham. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, wonderful. So we're going to learn about your book, your journey in only 10 minutes. So we're going to get the highlights. Are you ready, Jacqueline?
Fire away.
Let's do this. All right, 10 minutes at the top of the 10 minutes. What does it say on your business card, Jacqueline?
It says Chief Fearless Officer.
All right, that's the first time I've heard that. What is a chief fearless officer?
This is someone who's taken a great many risks in her life and shown the courage to take the next step and then the next step until finally you end up being fairly successful as an author and a coach and a facilitator and all the things you never thought you could possibly do.
Right, because what was holding you back?
I grew up in a very, very dysfunctional family with a lot of alcoholism, violent abuse, and so on and so forth. And I had a lot of demons that I had to come to terms with, and a lot of soul searching along the way, as well as reclaiming, the creative part of me. I'm a writer, I'm a singer, I'm a traveler. I've done all kinds of different things in my lifetime, and all of it was a result of being able to say, I feel the fear and do it anyway. And,
Hmm.
my tagline is always be fearless, see where it gets you, because it
Hmm.
gets you a lot of places.
Surely it's easier said than done, though, to be fearless.
Absolutely. Change is hard. Change is hard. And most people want to avoid it. It's
Hmm.
like, yeah, I kind of get along with what I've got already. But what I say about change is like get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Because when you get uncomfortable, you are absolutely opening up to all kinds of opportunities and things that you may not be willing to go to, but at the same time, when you do go to it, amazing things happen. And I
Hmm.
found that in my life.
In your own life, what about an example of where you really faced a lot of fear and you had to overcome it and you did overcome it?
So when I grew up with, as I said, a lot of abuse, and my self-esteem was like, the size of a gnat. It was tiny, tiny, tiny.
Hmm.
And so I did a whole bunch of stuff that was really self sabotage, a lot of self abuse and so forth, drugs, alcohol, children born outside of marriage that were given up for adoption, marriages that didn't work and leaving kids behind. Until finally I got to a stage in my life where it was like, you better get your shit together, girl, because otherwise, you're going to keep doing this and it's just going to keep ruining whatever it is that, is going on. But primarily, I did it because of my kids. It was like, I grew up in a background of really horrible dysfunction, and I didn't want the same for them. So by the time I got pregnant for the third time, I said, this kid's going to leave me before I leave her. And that was
Hmm.
really an important turning point for me. But it meant I had to deal with my alcohol, drug stuff going on. I had to deal with my insecurity. I had to deal with my own fears about, am I really capable? Am I worthy? Am I good enough? Blah, blah, blah. It's the same story that a lot of people have. And so when you are willing to face those demons and really step into the arena of, I need to adjust this in order to adjust the behaviors, then stuff happens. And so, I ended up writing books, making music, taking up martial arts, traveling the world, doing a whole bunch of stuff that when I was growing up in Leith, Scotland, as the child of a working class family who had no expectations whatsoever for having a life that was actually pretty amazing, frankly. So this is the journey I've made. And then, of
Hmm.
course, coming into the idea that, as I was kind of going through this, is that I've got something to teach and had some coaching around this. And so the Fearless Factor and the Fearless Factor at Work came out. And it was all about being fearless. And here's what I say about being fearless: it's not the absence of fear, but it's the courage to take that next step. And if you keep taking that next step and then the next step and the next step, you actually find a life of satisfaction, of fulfillment, joy, happiness, whatever you want to call it. But you have to get out of your own way first. And
Hmm.
that's was my journey. I had to get out my own way.
I wonder if part of the problem is that when we think of fear, we think of these sort of Hollywood style narratives, you know, like the demons and the dark lords and these monsters and dragons that we feel as fear. But really, isn't it that fear is other people? They're much more mundane manifestations of fear in our lives, what people think of us, what they say of us. I'm curious how fear actually manifests in people's lives and how do they
Um,
talk about it?
yeah, and I think you have a valid piece there because a lot of I do a lot of behavioral work in my my stuff with corporate people and otherwise. A lot of behavior is driven by fear, frankly. So if you just mentioned the approval thing of, I need to be liked, I need to make sure that, I'm checking in with you and I'm doing okay. So to the other point of view, it is simply about, do you approve of me?
Mm,
But there's another side to that, which is, in seeking approval, I also don't make decisions. I'm constantly trying to live within the confines of a certain particular parameter. But internally, what's going on is there's a dialogue that keeps saying you're not good enough, you're not capable, you're not worthy, you don't deserve it, you have to work for it, blah, 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 blah. This is the conversation that's going on in the heads of so many individuals. And, I had a conversation yesterday with someone who was all about, you know, I'm not good enough. And so this is someone who had achieved a great deal, but yet the imposter syndrome was still there. The sense of,
mm,
I'm just waiting to get found out, that I'm really not credible, that I'm really not capable, and so forth. But it wasn't about what the outside world was seeing and responding to. It was simply about how am I seeing myself in the world? And most of the time, what happens is people play really small. I'll try not to get noticed. I'll try not to make a noise. I'll try not to, you know, get myself out there so I can be criticized or judged or blamed, any of those issues. And that's all fear based behavior. And I
mm,
know this because I used to live it. Very
mm.
simple. Everything I teach, everything I talk about, everything that I am about at this point in time is I've been there, done that. And I got the stories to tell about it. And I
Mm.
write about them in my books. And, the whole idea of being fearless is, are you willing to take a risk to take the next step? And what is that
Okay,
step? That's the question.
let's see how we can improve the lives of our audience with some of this wisdom, Jacqueline, some of the lessons learned. You've got 2 minutes to teach them something. I know it's not a lot of time, and your work is much broader than 2 minutes, but there must be something, a quick win, a low lying fruit of improvement that you can impart in 2 minutes to our audience. So the challenge
So,
is, what can you teach them in 2 minutes that could change their lives for the better?
okay, so the biggest fear is the fear of failure, period. Okay, so if you have a fear of failure, know one thing: we're all failing our way to success. Simply being that failure is an expectation, a decision, or opinion that didn't go the way that you wanted it to. That's it. That's what failure is. A failure is something that you can get over, because the biggest failure is that if you don't get over it, you go out the pine box regretting everything that you possibly cared about at a certain point. So know this, that fear is a failure. The fear of failure is your road to success. Because by making those mistakes, learning those lessons, and moving on by saying next, because it was a choice, an opinion, a decision, an expectation that didn't go the way that you wanted it to, there you go. Because fear is primarily imagination based. We make shit up in order to deal with the uncertainties in our life. And
Hmm.
it's not that complicated, but you have to recognize that in order to move beyond it. How does that work?
Jacqueline, fantastic. Jackie, yeah, it works very well. I think the whole idea of reprogramming, reframing is really important, isn't it?
Yeah.
because the point is you can't make the feeling go away. You can't make the fear go away because that's hardwired into our biology for millions of years as mammals, animals. You can't make that go away, but you can reframe it, which is what
Yeah.
you're doing.
Totally.
Jacqueline Wales, everybody, where do we find out more about you and your writing?
You can go to JacquelineWales.com and you can find all kinds of good stuff there. And for all of your listeners, if you really want to make some changes, think about transitioning your career or for success, there's a course on my courses page. And I'm going to give you a special code of JW21, and you can go and claim that for free. And it's an online program that really allows you to tune in to what's working for you, what's not working for you. So reigniting your career for success, JW21, go take it. It's good for you.
Yeah, you won't regret it.
Yeah.
Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining us on Excel 10 Minute Leaders Live today. It was a privilege having you here and listening to a bit about your story as well and your work. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me, Graham. It's been a real pleasure to meet you and to talk with you. Thank you.